Hi. Bob and Ramon here again. Something completely different for you today. First and most important, it's Scarf Sunday.
It's very cold here in England. It's a beautiful sunny day, but it's a little bit chilly.
This is in response to all those generous comments last time we wore scarves, and everyone on these videos was saying, "What WTF is going on here?" We thought we'd get the scarves out again.
We're back.
Hey.
And so where's your scarf from?
Oh, I think I nicked it.
This is from the Sahara Desert.
Oh.
So, you know.
Provenance, authentic provenance.
There you go.
Theft versus... This is probably one of those scarves that I ended up taking it away from a restaurant, drunk late at night.
Like an umbrella.
The only one that was left, yeah, you know, and it was cold and whatever. Anyway, Hi guys. Now, we have a completely different video for you today. There's several house rules. No blues. Not even any blues riffs, really, which is really hard for me because that's all I can play.
No boomer guitars.
No boomer guitars, and so, well, you're playing a boomer guitar.
Well, not the obvious.
Okay.
Not the obvious.
But the other thing is we're also featuring, by sort of a combination of ego and popular demand, we're featuring the fridge.
Fridge.
Ramon will do some close-ups and edit them in here, but this is what I call my rack system, the fridge, because it's about the same size as a domestic fridge, only it took a great deal longer to build and to get working.
Yeah. So basically, when you turn up at a gig, Bob, you turn up with this and then the manual, and you start reading a manual.
Well, and of course, I turn up with my staff of 6 bearers, because
it's very heavy.
I mean, the two of us just tried lifting it earlier, and you know, it's got wheels, you can roll it, but you wouldn't want to lift this upstairs.
So what we're going to do today, Bob, is just have a look at this, the Axe FX, and also the Kemper. The Kemper, yeah.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to do.
And we've also got them in a rack. Shall I run through what is in here?
Yeah, I think you should, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I'll be quick. I'll be quick because it takes a long time. Okay, from the top, in a separate rack box, you've got an Axe FX Ultra, which is the second iteration of the Axe FX. So it's not one of the modern 2s or 3s. It's just an Ultra, which I've had from new, and I've had it a good few years now. Okay, and that drives a Mesa 5050 stereo tube power amplifier, and this box can be taken out with a couple of speakers by itself, and it's got preamps, effects and power amp in it, so you can play a gig in this. And for many years that was my gigging rig, playing in cover bands, because you can switch between sounds and get all the sounds you want. So, you know, clean with tremolo, big distorted sound, all the rest of it, just with a foot switch, you're off. That's that. In the loop of this Axe FX is all this stuff. So moving on to the main 14U rack unit below it, 14 units no less. The signal comes out the loop of the Axe FX and it goes into the GCX switcher, which is a MIDI switcher, 8 loops, first 4 in mono, second 4 customized to stereo. And that sends the signals around this rack. Goes first into a Groove Tubes Trio preamp, which is probably the best guitar preamp I've played. The clean on it's absolutely beautiful. Model on a Fender. Fantastic, classic tube preamp. Then it goes into a slightly more unusual thing, a Carvin Quad X, which is a 4-channel preamp. So it's got clean boost, crunch and lead. It's got a lot of tubes, and I think it's got 13 valves in it. It's mad. After that is the Soldano Caswell, and a shout out to one of our loyal listeners,
Davey.
Hi, Davey.
Davey.
Davey specifically requested that we feature the Soldano Caswell, so shout out to you, Davey. Hi.
Davey is an amazing guitar player.
Wonderful guitar player. And he, I think he used to own one, and he's grumpy that he sold it back in the day, but we all did. But I'm the silly bugger that's held on to it. The charm of this thing is, first of all, it's a very high quality preamp made by Mark Soldano, but the sexy thing is that when you change the patches, all the knobs are motorised and they all move, so it's Toy Town. It's like going to Hamleys. Right, after the Soldano Caswell, the signal goes into 2 effects processors, a Korg A3. So if the Edge is watching, no, you can't have it. I'm not selling it. Because he buys all of them. He hoovers, cleans the world up. This is one of his favourite effects. And I know exactly why, because the echoes on it, the delays, are really percussive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doubles that up with a 2290.
2290, and well, I mean, and his equivalent of this, he's got about 4 real estates like this. Wow. A lot. So it goes into the Korg A3. I've had the Korg A3 for years, and it's on its last legs. Famously, the displays always break. This one hasn't, but the battery's always going inside it and is mad. Then it goes into a TC Force, again another stalwart effect's been around for 20 years and hasn't really been improved on much. It's a great multi-effects, and the TC's really there mainly for reverbs and stuff like that. Finally, sitting in this rack but slightly separate is a Kemper Profiler. So the whole thing can be, all of this stuff can be switched and controlled from the foot switch. Now that's the good news. The bad news is it took me 25 years to build and wire and program it. And of that, the last 7 years was getting rid of all the hum and the noise. And I met some right bloody spivs in my time and spent money with some right spivs who couldn't fix it. And eventually a gentleman called Mike Hill, who used to be managing director of Marshall and now runs MH, I think out of Bletchley, somewhere near Bletchley. And he's got a stellar client list. I mean, all the big touring guys with big rigs.
Does he do Brian May at all?
He does Brian May, he does Tony Iommi, he does David Gilmour.
Wow.
I mean, these are guys who've got big rigs with lots of switching and all the rest of it. Yeah. And he does them. And I took it to him, and in a week, he fixed the whole thing. Now, if you look at the back of this, and you might do a close-up of the back, it's like spaghetti junction at the back. Not least because there's a number of noise reduction and buffering devices in the circuit that he's put in. Yeah. It's a work of art. Yeah. The only thing is it's so complicated I can't maintain it. But it's fun and games. It's a bit like you used to go into those hi-fi shops and they could press a button and they could put different amps through different speakers so you could compare which one you wanted to buy. Yeah. And this rack is a silly thing like that, really. Cool.
Let's try and play another song, and then we can just talk about the differences between the Axe effects and the Kemper and what the pros and cons are.
Actually,
your experience.
One thing we should say before we play the song is that we're both playing through this rack today, which is unusual. It's designed for one person to play. So what I've done is I've taken the Kemper out of the loops, and so I'm playing through the Kemper at the moment, and Ramon is playing through the Axe FX and some of the rest of it. We're going to keep swapping from time to time just because of the sounds we're trying to get, and because actually finding the sounds in real time and programming them, this video would be 18 hours long, and even our most loyal fans might get pissed off.
Yeah, and guys, you haven't seen, when we were prepping this video, I was setting up the gear and Bob was programming this thing, and it was pretty intense. Bob was getting really, it was getting heated. Angry was the word. I don't want to say it, but
angry because
I've never seen Bob ever angry, and this is the first time I've ever seen him angry.
Fiddling with little screens as opposed to gain, treble, bass.
And maybe this is going to be a conclusion of this video. You're going to hear it soon.
Yeah, you can hear it coming. Okay.
So I think that's really the benefit of having all this gear and some idea is that you can kind of recreate your favourite songs. So like you were saying earlier to us off camera, to me off camera, they're great machines to use on a covers gig.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Amazing. You can switch from clean tremolo to, rectified distorted sound to a wailing lead solo. You can switch a wah pedal in. You can have effects, chains of 8 effects at once, and you don't have to be dancing with foot pedals. You can just press a button and go straight out to your clean sound or whatever. Fantastic for that. Fantastic. But
there's always a but, isn't there, Bob?
There's always a but with me.
What is the but? I ask you.
So the but is, try as I may. I've as I say, I actually gigged this Axe FX for several years, and it looked after me pretty well. You can turn up somewhere, you can plug in, you can set up in 2 minutes. You've got all your sounds there.
I remember all the hoo-ha when these came out. These were meant to, especially if you were doing contemporary rock or heavy metal, that was the thing to have.
Yeah.
you know.
And it was great. So I really got to know this one really well. I got to know the programming. I've been grumbling today about programming through a small screen because I've forgotten about how to program it quickly, but I used to be able to dance around this in seconds.
So what are the overdrive sounds like on this? Right.
So it's got. Remember, this is a previous incarnation of the Axe FX. So the modern one's probably got many, many more. But this has got, it must have 60 or 70 different amp types in it, from a brown face or a black face Fender combo.
So you can dial in like an amp mod. It's an amp modeler basically.
Yeah, and you could dial in a rectifier. It's got several rectifier, Mesa rectifiers. Right. It's got,
So it's a preamp, and it's an effects unit basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and the preamp is based on a bunch of amp models, but they've put the amp models in. You don't create the amp models yourself.
Right. Whereas the Kemper...
Yeah. Now, the Kemper, the reason it's called a profiler is that profiling is Kemper's word for taking a model of any amp you wish. So it comes out the box with a bunch of models that they've put in at the factory. Right. But you can lash your computer up, you can go online and you can get everybody else's models. There's a thing called a rig exchange where basically everyone uploads the sounds they like. So you've got all those to choose from as well, and you can get a microphone out and you can put the profiling process involves making a ghastly set of noises through an amp and miking it up, and the Kemper listens to it and it unravels how the amp is responding to those noises
in ones and zeros,
and it models the amp.
Right.
And so I've modelled a number of my own amps, and but only with a Shure SM58.
So I tell you what, Bob, let's have a listen to some of those sounds that you've modelled off your amps and your friends' amps, just so that everybody can hear this at home, and then they can be the judge of if it sounds good or not.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. All right.
Let's do that. Okay then. So one thing, guys, is we're having to stop this video every 5 minutes to calibrate this thing and get the manual out. So just because this is one of the drawbacks of owning this sort of gear. But anyway, Bob, what we do now, so we're going to listen to the Kemper.
Yeah.
And these are the profiles that you've created by recording your amps and your friends' amps into this machine.
Yeah. Okay, so I should say, I've only made these in this room, which is not a recording studio. I've only used a Shure SM58, so it's not a £2,000 condenser microphone and all the other stuff. So it's not professional Kemper profiles. But I just wanted to see how they were. And what I would say is I've subsequently borrowed or bought some Kemper profiles from professional profilers.
Okay. Which have you got these in there?
Yeah, I could probably find them with another 5 minute.
Okay, we get the manual out again.
We'll get the manual out and the spanners, but I've got them. I was really interested to see how a professional made a profile, and they were going to be really good, weren't they?
Yeah, because you're going to use a decent microphone.
Actually, my profiles to my ear sounded pretty much.
Really?
I'm not sure. I won't say as good, but pretty much as.
Okay.
Right. So the things I'm going to run through now, I thought sounded a bit pony, until I listened to the professionals ones, and then I thought, oh no, the issue might be a bit bigger than that.
So maybe if you play first, Bob, and then I'll try and tell you what it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I mean, this is just a clean.
I mean, that sounds pretty good to me, and I know this is the 633 amp because you told me. So that wasn't a very good test, was it?
No, not really. I told you, but that's one of my 633 amps.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I mean, the only thing is I'm getting my feed from your deluxe amp, so it's hard for me to. And the watchers at home are going to get just this going through the computer. We're not even using any speakers. It's just going straight into the computer from the back of this Kemper, so you're going to get a better idea than me, but I think it sounds pretty good.
Okay, so I mean we're using my Fender Deluxe reissue just as a slave monitor amp, but it's obviously adding its own colour, so it is sounding quite guitar-y.
It is.
Okay, so that's a clean sound. I mean, if we just let's just find something. Okay, this is somebody else's sound. This is a 67 Plexi, whatever that.
Not bad.
Very aggressive.
Yeah.
Very shouty.
It's got the the characteristics.
Sounds quite processed.
It does. Yeah.
It doesn't. When I'm playing, it doesn't feel like I'm playing through an amp.
So it doesn't feel under your fingers like it's reacting.
Doesn't feel like it, but it sounds okay. I mean, you could talk about down to the rhythm part.
Yeah, if you're doing a covers gig, it's gonna work, isn't it?
I mean, I'm just.
What do you think, guys?
I'm skipping around quickly, but I mean, if I go, I'm going to try and find Okay. I don't even know what the level's going to be like. That's a model of one of my Overdrive specials. I haven't written down here which, but...
Could you play that again, please? Again, it's got some of the elements, but not really. I mean, it sounded good here because it's going through an amp, but I can see where it's got the brightness there, but it doesn't really. There's a lot of stuff missing. The chirp, the harmonics, they're not there.
Yep.
But it's got some characteristics. It's got some of the EQ sort of range.
Yeah, it's kind of warm.
Yeah,
it's warm, but it's nowhere near hot.
No.
And anyway, so that's we've probably done enough of this. I mean, the thing about these devices is, as you probably know, you can store hundreds, thousands of sounds in them, and this is no exception. So we've got dozens, hundreds of these things.
So let's try the XFX.
But just before we do that, there's one thing I do want to say, which it relates to both, but it's particularly strong in the Kemper. The Kemper also has a bunch of separately addressable cabinet simulations, and a lot of people rave about these things, impulse responses. There's a whole industry now, two notes, torpedoes, cabs, and all the rest of it, these impulse responses. And I've been trying to look into them, and I have to say I just don't understand them at all. I understand how they work, but I don't understand what the fuss is about, because all of them sound to me like the guitar sound has been squeezed through the same tube of toothpaste, regardless if it's an impulse response of a Celestian Gold, and I just, as soon as I turn the cab sims on, whether I'm running through a full range speaker or, for the purpose of today, just a combo as a slave, all of a sudden the sound becomes much more compressed and it sounds much more artificial. So I've got a long way to go in terms of understanding and appreciating, let alone liking, cab sims.
I think the technology is there now, but I think maybe in the future they will really nail it. I don't think they have nailed it quite yet.
But I mean, guys in studios, who've got good ears and good gear and plenty of chops, people we know, they're swearing by these things.
Yeah,
so
like
I'm assuming I'm wrong.
Pete
Thorne.
He gets some good
our
results,
friend Marcus.
Marcus, yeah.
I'm at the moment, I'm coming from a position where I must be wrong. But my ears are not telling me things that I'm liking to hear.
Personally, I'd rather mic up a small amplifier, have the problems of noise. I just don't think it can replicate a great Tweed, Champ or Princeton. I just don't think it's there yet. I don't think the technology is there yet.
And certainly, I mean, I've been looking, but I haven't found my way to that answer yet either. So, I mean, if we move on to the AXFX, which is, to be fair, the AXFX compared to the Kemper is a more primitive device. This AXFX has been superseded by at least 2, if not 3 generations. And more signal processing and so on.
Can you update these, or do you have to buy a new machine?
That's the bugger. Within a model, you can get updates.
Right.
But they've decided, all these companies have different attitudes. Kemper are pretty good at just continuing to issue updates. AXFX stopped issuing updates for this model when they introduced its successor.
Right. I see.
And I think they've done the same with the 2 as the 3 came out.
Right.
Now, they're not getting much more expensive, and you're getting more and more processing power and knobs and rack space for more or less the same $2,500.
Right.
So,
do you feel a little bit hard done by?
I'm of an age where you used to fix things and repair things rather than throw them away and recycle them. So yes, I do, but that might be my age coming out. But yes, I do. Once you shell out a lot of money on gear, particularly software-based gear, I think you do you do expect some support.
Basically, you're gonna have to sell it, and you're gonna lose some money on it.
Yeah, you are. And the trouble is, when an AXFX 2 comes out, this AXFX Ultra, which was worth. I mean, let's say it cost me $2,000.
Yeah.
And let's say its second-hand value is £1,200. Out comes the 2. You can whistle for much over £600 or £700 for it.
Wow.
Wow. Because everybody else, like you, knows that the reason you're selling it is because it's not supported anymore.
So let's hear some Overdrive sounds.
Okay.
This is the AXFX, guys.
Hi, back again after another quick edit. This time I'm going straight through the AXFX. I'm hearing it through the Mesa and an EV speaker, but you're not. You're getting the feed straight from the back of the amp, the preamp, into
Pro Tools.
Into Pro Tools. So, and I'm actually going to play 3 sounds. These are the sounds I used to gig with. So I'm just going clean, crunch, and lead. Okay, so.
that's kind of like a little bit distorted, right?
It's a little bit drivey, just because of how I chose to play. But that was basically the regular jamming clean sound I did. If I go to the crunch sound, crunch is quite crunchy. So that's the crunch sound. The lead sound, which, you know, I'm going to play a lot of solos in pubs on this. So you can hear there's a bit of processing on there, because the whole point of having one of these devices is so you don't just use it as a preamp, but you stick your delays and your reverbs on it, so there's a bit of processing there. But those sounds, again, they were just fine for playing in covers bands. They were really good. Yeah. But if you asked me to go out and do a blues gig with you, you know, this evening, you said, what are you going to bring? And I've got your 6 standard bearers are there ready to carry all the gear for you. I'd just go straight for one of those amps on the other side of the room, and I wouldn't do this. Yeah. So for me, these things, they're really recording tools. But even then, I haven't yet had a lot of luck and success when I've recorded with them.
So to my ears, the Axe FX, it sounds dated. Sounds very dated.
And that's legitimate, because it is. It's a 6, 7, 8 year old piece of kit, and it's been superseded. So fair play.
And the Kemper sounds like it's the next generation, a different system.
Yeah.
And it's going more for the modelling thing. It sounds like it's on its way to somewhere.
Yeah.
Good.
And, you know, there's a lot of product out there in the marketplace now, because Fractal, first of all, they've got their the Axe FX3.
Right.
Then they've got the range of floor pedals which carry the same guts.
So it's a new Fractal. Is that more or less like a Kemper now? Is it doing the whole modelling?
Well, it's the same size, but the Fractal device still works the same way.
Right. So you can't.
And the Kemper device still works the same way. So they have a different approach. To recreating these sounds.
So it's like 2 cheeks of the same backside.
His favourite analogy.
To quote George Galloway, great Scotsman.
They're coming at the same problem from a different edge. Now, what I find about these things is I think some of the clean sounds you can get, particularly with the processing power of the Axe FX, are amazing. If you want a kind of walk-in spatial chorus and echo, both devices will do amazing things. And if you want, at the other end of the spectrum, a really a triple rectified type sound, you know, pillows of distortion and grunge.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. The problem for me and for you is that we live in the middle ground of on the edge of amp breakup. So our clean sounds have got a little bit of grit in them, and our dirty sounds haven't got very much drive and gain. And these are the hardest sounds for digital equipment to process.
If you want my opinion, Bob, personally, like I said, if I had to just play through these things, I'd probably give up guitar. You know, electric anyway, because then it's not an inspiring tone. I'm not getting the clank, the sparkle. I'm not hearing it.
No, and it's funny. I mean, you know, for a minute, I mean, I'm coming across as a person who's obviously got more patience and tolerance, and trust me, that's not me. But I'm obviously enough of a gearhead. First of all, to sunk too many bloody wages into this kind of.
I just want to plug into something.
But also, I've kind of persisted with these things, and as I say, it is possible to get some incredible sounds if you want to get the kind of rhythmic echo that plays back at you, not like the Edge, but like the kind of thing you could start a big stadium rock set with. Whoa, you can do that stuff. But as soon as you go into those classic lead guitar feel it type sounds, it loses me.
So for effects, it's fantastic, and I do agree.
Amazing.
For effects, I think I really like these for the effects, but you're still going to need a real amp to put it through.
Yeah. Now, one thing I've never tried, I really ought to try, maybe another video, you know, if anybody out there can bear it, is to get one of our ODS amps and a little dumbelator and just use the Axe FX as an effects unit in the loop.
It will sound fantastic.
I bet it sounds mad good.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the effects processing in this is amazing.
And the Kemper, it does really good effects.
The Kemper, on its own admission, is a much less of its processing mind is given over to the effects. The effects in the Kemper are sort of emulations of pedal boards,
right,
whereas the effects in the Axe FX are emulations of studio effects.
Right. So I'll probably be more into the Axe FX probably. But you know, I saw Bob. I saw Edgar Winter. here in London, and he's guitar player. I don't know his name. Great guitar player, and he was playing through a Kemper on top of a 4x12.
Yeah.
And it sounded really good, but there's something missing. I was probably the only person in the room because I'm a guitar player.
Yeah.
I'm listening out for the tone, and there was something missing.
Yeah.
It was just clinical sound. It sounded great, but it's just not my sound, not my idea.
I mean, one thing I would say is a lot of the younger players that I know, and the guys who are trying to carve out a living in this industry, the pressure on them to use usually a Kemper rather than an XFX, the pressure on them is enormous, and most of them have succumbed to it. Okay, whether they wanted to or not. And the reason for that is it's incredibly convenient. It's a thing that you can take one box out, doesn't weigh very much. You can carry it out. Studio engineers, live engineers love it because you've got these direct outs. If you use a Kemper in the purest sense, you don't have a studio, you don't have a monitor on stage at all.
If you're playing in town, you're doing a musical or you're doing some kind of production, and you don't really care. You're there for the money. You're there just to show up and do the job. I can understand why somebody wants to use a Kemper, but if you're invested in your art, in your music, and you want the tone and you want to put your tone out there, then that's where I think these things are going to fail.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, make no mistake. I mean, this is definitely the ascendancy, and lugging around, old, vacuum tubes, bottles, is, for me, it's still way better oral and tactile experience.
Yeah.
But they're hated. I mean, for viewers, when was the last time you actually didn't have a row with the sound engineer when you played a live gig? If you turn up with a deluxe reissue combo, 22 watts, yeah, and the mixing engineer will not let you play it over 3.
No.
Well, then you're going to get a nice, jangly, clean Fender sound. But if you want a drive sound, you're going to have to use a pedal.
Yeah.
And when the drummer hits his snare or his toms, you won't even be audible.
Thing is, Mike Knopfler, his latest tour, was he playing a Kemper? I think he was.
Okay.
I know he was. I think it was a Kemper or something. He was playing some amp modeler on his last tour that he's done.
Okay.
He wasn't even using an amplifier.
Okay. Well,
so there you go. He's the master of tone himself.
Great guitar player, master of tone,
Yeah.
and probably got the right people to advise him on the best possible solution. But certainly, I find it a steep learning curve. I find it a great fiddle, and at the end of the day, for all the work that I've troubled to put in, I don't really think the reward is there yet.
It's like, look at Neil Young. Take his rig. He's using a tiny little amp, isn't he? With
Probably a beat up old Tweed Deluxe or something, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a very, he's used it for years.
Yeah.
It gets a beautiful sound. He's modernised it with those robot sort of things.
Yeah.
And why change it? Why change something if it's sounding so amazing?
Yeah. I mean, it's not really the subject of this video, but I have done a couple of videos for this channel about my Boss MS3 multi-effect and switcher, tiny little thing. And if you said, okay, you've got to go out tonight and you take a piece of gear with you, I said, do you know what? If there's an amp in the house, I'd actually even take the Boss out and play into a strange amp, and I'd have an 80% chance of being very, very happy. Whereas if I had to take some of this stuff out now,
this is why I'm making a little
I feel
bit
shortchanged.
Yeah, this is why I'm not 100% behind it, because it's not small. It's not. I mean, my projector amplifiers are smaller than this.
Yeah.
So I can understand like the Boss unit. It's a small unit. We'll show you a thing. That's great because it's just a small pedal you take out, plug into the PA, whatever, But to have one of these things in a rack, with a power amp or whatever, it's a big old thing to plug around.
It is still a big thing. I mean, having said that, this top box, this is in a fiberglass case made by Gator, and it's quite clever because it's got a pull-out handle. It's got 2 wheels, so it's actually you can move it around. But it's not actually the XFX.
You're not going to be running down, catching a bus on the underground.
You won't, and you still got to get it onto the bus.
Yeah.
And whatever. But the one thing is, I should say, we're being slightly unfair because most of the weight in this box is in the power amp.
Right.
Because you've got 4 bottles, you've got big transformers, so that's all the weight. The XFX doesn't weigh much. The Kemper weighs less. So if that's all you're taking, you can stick it in a backpack along with your guitar, and you can get to a gig, and it won't break your back.
Guys, let us know your thoughts on this. Let us know your comments. What you think about the Kemper and the XFX, and using it, especially now we're in COVID time. Do we need amplifiers anymore? Are they redundant?
I mean, the world around us guitarists would say yes, they're redundant, and we're fed up with you turning up and playing your bloody instruments too loud.
John McLaughlin is playing through a laptop.
But but that's for a particular kind of music, which is quite well mannered. But for the kind of guitar player that certainly you and I spend time listening to, and I guess most of the viewers out here, those kind of guitar players, they know that, sadly but true, and it may be boorish and boring, but the way to get a tone out of a guitar is through an amp that's struggling.
Yes.
That's part of the sound of guitar.
Yeah.
And so until somebody can give you both the sound,
bottle that,
and the feel, of that,
because it's a feel under your fingers.
Then purist old coves like me are going to be whinging.
And myself, I mean, that's why I've gone to these small projector amplifiers, because I want to jump on a tube with a small little setup, and I can do that. With these new speakers, which are really lightweight.
Yeah.
Have a 10-inch one of them, and a small little amp, and you're away. You don't need to go into the whole Kemper thing, because the Kemper thing is still a size. You've still got to carry it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, on the bright side, the Kemper particularly has one thing going for it. It's a very well designed product. It's got loads of different outputs, so you can have an output going into your power amp and your 4x12. You can have an output going into full range speakers, which is what most Kemper users would use, and they then adjust the EQ. So I know that they're going to have a go at me because they're saying, you're not using your Kemper in the proper fashion. Well, I'm not using it in one proper fashion, true, but it's got outputs to go straight to go to your monitors. It's got outputs to go to the front of house. It's very, very flexible, and you can mix all these outputs individually. So you can have a very loud signal for you and a very, very quiet signal for the front house. Everybody's happy, no friction. So it's really clever, well-designed product.
Good,
Everything around the core product is brilliant. The user interface, I much prefer the manual for the AXE-FX, and I much prefer the user interface. I find the Kemper instructions extremely complicated and difficult, and also very, very lengthy. But maybe that's me being an old dog and new tricks. But the problem that we're talking about really is we're sort of skirting around the edge. The core, the elephant in the middle of the room, is the sound of great lead, probably blues rock informed guitar. And it's not there yet.
It's not there.
No.
I'm not hearing it, Bob. Even on the clean sounds, something's not quite right for me.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is what this channel is all about: opinions. Your opinion,
indeed.
Our opinion. Okay guys, thanks very much for watching this. We're going to be back real soon from
Bob and from
me.
Cheerio.
Adios.
Bye.